The air within the grand scepterium of the unified stellar conquered was thick and cold, a heavy, ionized atmosphere that pressed upon the sensory organs of the assembled delegates, mimicking the profound metaphysical weight of the crisis unfolding in the distant sectors. Great, pulsating luminescent veins ran along the obsidian floor of the chamber, drawing the eye toward the central projection, a vast, shimmering holographic representation of the disputed Xylos 7 cluster, now dominated by a newly manifested gravitational anomaly. This anomaly was not astronomical. It was artificial, singular, and ancient, a shadow pulled from the deepest strata of prohibited galactic history. Hierarch Lyra of the Sylvani, a creature of intricate, crystalline structure and slow, deliberate movements, felt the familiar tremor of panic resonating through the chamber's subsonic dampeners, a collective fear that pulsed strongest from the Krell delegation seated on the upper tiers, the architects of the galaxy's current security protocols, now facing a collapse of all known predictive models. "It is moving, Elder Vareth," Strategos Xylos of the Vorlag reported, his voice a tight, digitized rasp that cut through the deep silence. Xylos's 3 ocular stalks focused intently on the simulation, projecting reams of kinetic data that swam around the massive, terrifying outline of the forbidden vessel. "Its trajectory is nominal, adhering precisely to the historical, classified parameters of the Blood Moon Cycle Protocol. We had categorized this cycle as mythological, a function of ancient paranoia. Now it is operational, and it is hunting." Vareth, the Krell elder whose scaled plates bristled subtly with suppressed energy, stood to his full height, a gesture of dominance that failed to mask the deep anxiety etched around his mandibles. The Krell had dedicated cycles to suppressing the rumors and scant archaeological data pertaining to the Ethel Asterisk, the whispered designation of the forbidden ship. They had predicated the entire conquered security philosophy on the principle that the dead remained dormant, that technologies deemed too dangerous were forever sealed by the passage of time. "Mythology is a poor shield against kinetic reality, Strategos," Vareth responded, his tone heavy with censure, though aimed more at the reality itself than at Xylos. "The crucial variable remains the Terran species. The activation of the asterisk Ethel Asterisk, this blood moon hunt, coincided precisely with the arrival of the Terran scout fleet on the periphery of the cluster. We have conflicting reports. Were they the catalyst, or are they the unwitting prey? Their data signatures are chaotic, their intentions opaque, their technological profile utterly inconsistent with established progression models. They possess the capacity for instantaneous transit, yet they utilize kinetics that are inefficient and brutal. They are a profound statistical error, Hierarch Lyra." Lyra extended a delicate photosensitive limb, absorbing ambient light before replying. "Elder Vareth, correlation does not equate to causality. The Terrans were investigating a weak point in the spatial fabric, the same weak point we sealed and marked with the highest restriction classification, noting the potential for dormant entity leakage. Their curiosity, perhaps, activated the ancient mechanism, but we must proceed with profound caution." The Krell proposed immediate interdiction against the Terrans upon their initial detection. I warned against it. To engage a species we do not understand while simultaneously facing a threat we thought extinct is a formula for cascading catastrophe. We must establish communication, immediate and unambiguous, with the Terrans. We must ascertain their knowledge, if any, of this entity, this Ethel Asterisk. The projection shifted, focusing on the minute, insignificantly small signature of the Terran vessel, the TNS Vigilance Asterisk. It was holding position, maintaining an unnerving stillness while the massive, dark contour of the Ethel began its slow, deliberate acceleration across the stellar plane, leaving subtle ripples in the local energy fields, ripples that spoke of unimaginable power consumption and ancient, brutal efficiency. The Vorlag analysts were unable to penetrate the Ethel Asterisk's shielding, merely cataloging the effects of its passage. The hunt, as the ancient protocols termed it, had begun its inaugural phase, and the silence from the Terrans was the most terrifying element of the entire geopolitical equation. A tense, prolonged silence settled over the scepterium, broken only by the faint, high-frequency oscillations of the Vorlag sensor arrays processing increasingly worrying acceleration curves. This silence was more eloquent than any debate, speaking of the crumbling confidence of a pangalactic civilization that had believed it had mastered the universe, only to be confronted by the ghosts of forgotten cycles. The Ethel represented not just kinetic threat, but a philosophical one, proof that the Great Sleep was fallible, that history always found a way to repeat its darkest moments. The Terrans, conversely, represented sheer, unpredictable novelty, a variable that defied the structured logic of the conquered, a species that moved with the rapid, unthinking energy of nascent life, utterly unlike the measured, long-cycle existence of the elder civilizations. Strategos Xylos detail the parameters of the Blood Moon hunt as specified in the limited archival fragments we possess, Vareth commanded, his voice now lower, acknowledging the dire seriousness. Xylos adjusted his internal energy regulators. The data is fragmented and categorized under extreme prejudice, Elder. It appears the asterisk Ethel is a dedicated weapon system, operating under a pre-programmed directive keyed to specific long-cycle stellar alignments, the Blood Moon cycle. Its primary function is ecological sterilization. It identifies and nullifies high-growth rate, kinetically violent civilizations or entities that violate established, ancient equilibrium standards. The data implies that the target acquisition is not random. It is highly specific, based on energy signature output and expansion velocity. If the Terrans have been detected by the *Ethel**S legacy systems, it means their expansion rate or energy profile has been flagged as dangerously unsustainable, placing them immediately at the top of the hunt hierarchy. Hierarch Lyra pulsed softly, the crystalline refraction darkening slightly. That profile, high growth, kinetic violence, unsustainable expansion, is a perfect description of the Terrans based on the 3 cycles of observation we have conducted. Their internal conflicts are frequent, their technology volatile, their psychological makeup defined by constant, accelerated striving. If the asterisk Ethel is indeed focused on maintaining ancient equilibrium, then the Terrans are, structurally, the most likely target in the cluster. We must therefore accelerate the diplomacy. We need information. We need to know if they understand the danger they represent to themselves and, by extension, to us. Lyra initiated the external contact protocol, overriding the Krell quarantine restrictions. The complex sequence of communication initiation, designed to convey diplomatic gravity and technological superiority, began its agonizingly slow process across the interstellar void toward the *TNS Vigilance *. The wait for the Terran response stretched the tension within the Skepterium past the breaking point. The Vorlag began projecting estimates of the *Ethel**S time to target. The numbers were terrifyingly short. The forbidden ship was not merely drifting. It was moving with purpose, accelerating past all known conventional velocity limits without visible expenditure of kinetic fuel, utilizing physics the conquered had long dismissed as theoretical extrapolation. The silence of the Terran vessel during this period spoke volumes to the assembled aliens. Either they were paralyzed by fear, calculating a desperate evasion, or, most worryingly, they were entirely ignorant of the existential doom bearing down upon them, consumed by their own chaotic internal affairs. Finally, the sensor projection flickered. The communication channel was acknowledged, not with the high-frequency bursts of data encryption the conquered utilized, but with a steady, deep-spectrum carrier wave, a confidence in communication that bordered on arrogance. The projection resolved the Terran representative, a single human, clad in a utilitarian dark gray uniform, standing against a background of controlled instrumentation that betrayed no sign of haste or disorder. He was physically unremarkable in the scope of the galaxy, defined by soft, flexible physiology, yet his posture radiated an unnerving stillness that immediately unnerved the delegates who thrived on visible displays of status and stress. This was Captain Elias Vance, and his first words, spoken through a synthesized universal translator, were measured, calm, and utterly devoid of the confusion or terror the conquered expected. Unified Stellar Conquered Delegation, Vance began, his voice surprisingly deep, resonating slightly even through the projection. We acknowledge your prioritization signal. Your request for immediate information exchange regarding the designated ancient vessel, restricted designation *Ethel**, is noted. Be advised, the ship is not dormant. It is operational, and we have been tracking its subsystem activity for the last 72 cycles. The Krell Elder Vareth leaned forward, a surge of adrenaline overriding his diplomatic training. Tracking it, Terran, you display an alarming lack of appropriate fear. That entity is a Class 9 existential threat. Do you comprehend the magnitude of the danger? Its protocols initiate galactic sterilization events. What is your strategy? Evasion is impossible at its projected velocity, Captain Vance remained completely still. His eyes, dark and focused, seemed to analyze not the Krell Elder's words, but the Krell Elder's underlying emotional state. Elder Vareth, we comprehend the kinetic threat perfectly. We also comprehend the operating parameters of the entity. Evasion is unnecessary. We are not attempting to evade. We are attempting to intercept. This statement shattered the Skepterium's fragile composure. Intercept? The Ethel, the most feared, forbidden entity in recorded history. This small, young species spoke of interception as if discussing a minor navigational correction. Xylos's sensor data immediately confirmed the shocking truth. The TNS vigilance had shifted its vector. It was not retreating. It was moving on a long, arcing course that placed it directly in the predicted path of the Blood Moon hunt. Hierarch Lyra, regaining a measure of control, intervened, her crystalline body shimmering rapidly to convey intellectual urgency. Captain Vance, explain this decision immediately. Your trajectory is suicidal. Furthermore, how do you possess knowledge of the *Ethel**S operational parameters? We spent millennia classifying and suppressing the knowledge of this weapon system. Your species has been observed for only 3 cycles. Vance allowed a small pause, a subtle timing that conveyed considered professionalism rather than hesitation. Hierarch Lyra, the knowledge of the Ethel is not proprietary to your conquered, nor is it unique to this local region of space. While your civilizations appear to have classified the Ethel as a mythological weapon, we classify it differently. We recognize it as an autonomous, ancient security protocol, specifically an environmental remediation unit. It is not operating under malicious intent. It is operating under programmed, inflexible necessity. The Blood Moon hunt is merely the local designation for its cycle synchronization. The atmosphere in the Skepterium condensed into pure bewilderment. Environmental remediation. The concept stripped the horror from the ancient terror, replacing it with the cold, unsettling precision of automated maintenance. Vareth struggled to process the terminology. Remediation? Against whom? Against what? If it is merely maintenance, why does its historical record catalog planetary obliteration events? Because, Vance replied, his voice hardening slightly, conveying a professional dismissal of the Conquered's historical interpretation. Planetary obliteration is the necessary byproduct of its primary function, the culling of a specific, non-native, highly invasive metaparasitic entity. The entity emerges precisely during the gravitational resonance you refer to as the Blood Moon cycle. It thrives on accelerated, chaotic energy signatures, the very signatures the Ethel is programmed to eliminate. The historical records of obliterated civilizations are merely collateral damage, species that, by unfortunate coincidence, perfectly mirrored the energetic profile of the true target. This was the first significant reveal of Terran depth. They possessed not merely information, but an entirely different, systemic understanding of the regional history. The Conquered had focused on the *Ethel**S effects, destruction, and classified it as a weapon of terror. The humans focused on its cause, eradication of a parasite, and classified it as a remediation unit. The philosophical gap was immense. Xylos, the Vorlag strategos, began rapidly cross-referencing this new information with suppressed Vorlag deep space scans. A collective shudder went through the Vorlag delegation. Xylos's optical stalks retracted slightly, signaling acute internal stress. Captain Vance, Xylos whispered, his digital voice wavering. Our deep spectrum scans, previously discarded as erroneous sensor ghosting, show the propagation of a non-baryonic energy field emanating from the cluster's core, a field that matches historical profiles of aggressive life-form energy leaching. If your analysis is correct, the Ethel is not the threat. It is the scheduled response to the true threat which we entirely missed, focused only on the antiquity of the mechanism. Precisely, Vance confirmed, leaning slightly into the projection, the first sign of movement he had given. The metaparasite is the issue, and the Ethel**S method of remediation is, by its nature, indiscriminate and final. It cleanses the entire region based on threshold detection. Any species operating above a certain kinetic output during the cycle, a designation we Terrans unfortunately meet, is slated for assimilation or destruction to starve the parasite. Vareth wrestled with the implications. The terror was replaced by a cold, calculating fury directed not at the humans, but at the situation's intractable complexity. So, you intend to intercept this guardian mechanism, to stop the *Ethel from fulfilling its ancient duty. Are you certain this parasite is not the lesser threat? If the Ethel is stopped, the metaparasite will multiply exponentially. We cannot risk the spread of an unknown systemic threat simply to save your species from your own unsustainable energy profile. Vance's gaze was utterly unwavering. Elder, we are not stopping the *Ethel merely to save ourselves. We are stopping it because its method is archaic, inefficient, and highly destructive. While its primary function, containing the metaparasite, is necessary, its execution is unacceptable. We have developed a counter-protocol. We have analyzed the *ethyl *S core programming and derived the necessary override sequences. This revelation was the ultimate affront to the Conquered's technological arrogance. This young species, barely registered on the galactic map, claimed to have reverse-engineered, within cycles, a system that defied Conquered analysis for millennia, a system built by a progenitor civilization whose complexity was literally off the charts. Override sequences? Lyra questioned, her voice tight with philosophical disbelief. That ship is a monolithic structure built on foundational physics we cannot even model. How can you possess the keys to its deactivation? The ethyl is old, Vance explained with the simple, stark logic of an engineer. But age equates to predictable structure. Progenitor races, while powerful, often favor long-term stability and ease of automated maintenance. The ethyl operates on a closed-loop system, designed to fulfill one singular, brutal purpose. Such systems require access points, fail-safes, and periodic diagnostics. We access the low-level maintenance schematics encoded within the initial temporal displacement residue of the forbidden cluster. Essentially, we found the maintenance manual. The phrase maintenance manual reduced the cosmological terror of the ethyl to the level of common, serviceable machinery, a jarring piece of human pragmatism that infuriated the Krell and stunned the Sylvani. You propose a diplomatic solution to a weapons system operating under ancient, non-negotiable directive, Vareth summarized, skepticism dripping from his every word. Tell us, Captain Vance, what is the Terran counter-protocol? How do you intend to stop a vessel of near-infinite kinetic energy without engaging in a conflict you cannot possibly win? Vance straightened slightly. We do not intend to fight the maintenance unit. We intend to give it a new directive. Our objective is a surgical insertion onto the *ethyl *S hull. Specifically, the primary control nexus, which our data models project is structurally stable and accessible during the mid-acceleration phase. We will transmit a code packet designed to mimic a high-priority system upgrade. This upgrade will replace the ecological sterilization subroutine with a targeted non-kinetic neutralization subroutine, essentially retraining the *ethyl to perform its function without planetary collateral damage. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. They weren't fighting the ancient machine. They were hacking it. They were treating the end-of-days scenario as a software patch. Lyra, though still profoundly unsettled by the human approach, recognized the brilliance of the tactical analysis. If this fails, Captain, the risk is intolerable. The ethyl could perceive your insertion attempt as an attack, resulting in an immediate catastrophic countermeasure that would encompass both your vessel and potentially ours. That outcome has been modeled with 97.4% accuracy, Vance replied, his response instantaneous, revealing the depth of their prior preparation. The failure threshold is acceptable. We are proceeding. However, Hierarch Lyra, we require tactical assistance from the Conquered, not for kinetic defense, but for environmental stabilization. Our insertion vessel requires a precise navigational window. We need the Vorlag to maintain real-time, high-definition data on the *ethyl *S plasma sheath fluctuations. That data must be precise to within the micron level. The humans, in the midst of proposing a maneuver that would either save the sector or doom it, were not asking for protection. They were asking for precision data collaboration, treating the Conquered as highly skilled support technicians, rather than sovereign powers. Xylos of the Vorlag, captivated by the mathematical challenge and the confirmation of his own deep-spectrum ghost readings, found himself involuntarily responding. The plasma sheath fluctuations, they are extremely erratic at this velocity. The data strain will overwhelm our primary processing cores. We understand the strain, Vance stated calmly, but precision is non-negotiable. The ethyl *S kinetic displacement field relies on microtemporal adjustments. If we miss the stabilization window by even a fraction of a millisecond, the insertion craft will be destroyed. We will transmit our modeling algorithms to your primary processing bank now. Utilize our computational models. Hey are optimized for nonlinear kinetics. The screen displayed a sudden, intense burst of data transmission, a computational load that momentarily flickered the lights in the Skepterium. The Vorlag, faced with both an insult to their technological pride and an inescapable mathematical imperative, began frantically integrating the Terran data. The complexity of the models was immediately apparent. It was not just advanced physics. It was a completely different philosophical approach to understanding physical reality, built on principles of probabilistic causality the Vorlag had only vaguely theorized. Vareth, watching the Vorlag strategos sweating under the computational pressure, realized the true depth of the Terran threat. It was not kinetic, it was cognitive. They were simply operating on a higher plane of understanding, treating the universe as a problem to be solved, rather than a force to be feared. The Krell Elder realized he had only one remaining political move, to force the Terrans to acknowledge the existential nature of the decision. "Captain Vance," Vareth said, his voice regaining its command authority, "the Conquered requires assurance. If you succeed, you save not only your species, but us all from the Ethel *S collateral damage and the proliferation of this meta-parasite. If you fail, the repercussions are unthinkable. Why? Why take this calculated, insane risk? Why does the survival of your species hinge upon solving the problems of a civilization that ceased to exist epochs ago? What drives this singular, focused determination?" Vance looked directly into the camera, and for the first time a flicker of something deeply personal crossed his expression, though it was still framed by professional restraint. "Elder Vareth, you perceive our action as a risk calculation. We perceive it as an obligation. We do not engage with the universe in terms of simple survival metrics. We engage with it in terms of systemic maintenance. The meta-parasite is a danger to all life. The Ethel is an uncontrolled, environmentally destructive automated response. We Terrans, we have a deep evolutionary history of cleaning up messes. We are inherently problem solvers. We refuse to accept that ancient machines dictate the fate of the present, especially when those machines are operating with faulty parameters. We will neutralize the threat, and we will maintain the system. That is our logic. That is our ethical imperative." The sheer scale of their self-defined responsibility, not just to themselves, but to the operational health of the galaxy, was staggering to the Conquered. They claimed the role of caretakers, of necessary disruptors, of those who mend broken cosmological systems. "The insertion craft is away," Vance stated abruptly, the conversation shifting immediately from philosophy to kinetic action. The projection of the TNS Vigilance showed a minute delta-winged vessel separating from the main hull, accelerating on an impossible vector toward the rapidly approaching Ethel. The tension in the Skepterium reached its ultimate pitch. The Vorlag Strategos Xylos was now projecting the live data stream. The microfluctuations in the Ethel*S temporal displacement sheath were volatile, violent, and utterly unpredictable, matching the Terran models perfectly. Xylos's digitized voice was strained. "Captain Vance, the stabilization window is closing. 300 standard seconds until insertion point. The field resonance is exceeding the predicted variables." "Maintain course," Vance ordered, his voice echoing from the Vigilance asterisk. "The variables are within our acceptable margins of error. Strategos Xylos feed the fluctuation data directly into the insertion craft's inertial dampeners. Trust the model, not your local sensor readings. The Ethel is utilizing localized temporal distortion to mitigate drag. Your readings are lagging reality." This was the final, terrifying moment of trust. The Vorlag had to discard their own meticulously verified sensory data and trust the predictive models provided by a species they had known for mere cycles. Xylos hesitated for a fraction of a second, a flicker of technological pride battling existential fear, before he submitted to the imperative. "Data feed redirected." "Integration confirmed. We are running on Terran predictive calculus." The projection magnified the approach of the insertion craft, a tiny, dark silhouette against the colossal, dark gray, geometrically impossible hull of the Ethel*. The forbidden ship was truly terrifying in its scale, its surfaces textured with millennium of vacuum exposure, yet humming with the fierce, focused energy of its terrible purpose. The blood-moon alignment was now visible in the background, the deep red light saturating the cluster, providing the environmental key for the ancient weapon. 50 seconds to insertion point, fluctuation wave peaking," Xylos screamed, the digitized strain palpable. Vance's voice cut through. The noise utterly calm. "Stand by to receive data packet confirmation. The moment the insertion craft locks onto the nexus point, we transmit the update." The insertion craft seemed to blur, entering the outer edge of the Ethel*S kinetic field. The craft was tossed violently, defying all expectations of structural integrity. Lyra closed her crystalline matrices, unable to watch the imminent destruction. Vareth clenched his mandibles, bracing for the failure that would signify the end of the current galactic order. Then there was an unnatural stillness. The insertion craft locked, A projection line, impossibly fine and brilliant, flashed from the small vessel to a singular, glowing node on the *Ethel**S monstrous hull, the nexus point. Insertion confirmed, Vance reported, a simple statement of fact that held the weight of untold millennia. Initiating transmission of targeted non-kinetic neutralization subroutine version 1. Deployment protocol, Mendicant. The massive, ancient forbidden ship, the vessel of galactic terror, shuddered. It was not a violent, destructive shudder, but a systemic, internal reconfiguration. The dark outline of the Ethel pulsed once intensely, drawing an unprecedented amount of energy from the surrounding void. And then the intense, focused energy signature of the Blood Moon Hunt decelerated instantaneously. The terrifying, single-minded acceleration ceased. The Ethel was stopped dead in the void. In the Skepterium, the silence was absolute, broken only by the soft, steady hum of the Vorlag processors now reading an entirely new, stable kinetic state. Status report. Vareth demanded, his voice thick with disbelief and residual fear. Xylos's optical stalk slowly unfurled, confirming the data. The Ethel is decelerating to zero velocity. Its internal energy consumption has spiked, then normalized at a standard maintenance level. The core weapon systems are shifting output mode. Analyzing spectral output, the high kinetic plasma field has been replaced by a focused, high-frequency sonic disruptor field. The targeting criteria, they have changed. It is no longer targeting high kinetic profiles. It is targeting the localized, non-baryonic energy fields of the metaparasite, precisely as the Terrans described. The protocol shift is confirmed. The Blood Moon Hunt has been repurposed. Captain Vance, still displayed in the central projection, allowed himself a single, almost imperceptible nod. Protocol Mendicant confirmed operational. The Ethel is now an environmental stabilizer, capable of neutralizing the metaparasite without collateral damage. The threat has been managed. The sheer relief in the Skepterium was almost overwhelming, a metaphysical weight lifted instantly, replaced by a deep, unsettling humility. The Terrans had achieved in hours what the Conquered had feared for millennia, not by force, but by intellectual superiority and ethical clarity. Hierarch Lyra slowly materialized her attention back onto the Terran captain, her respect now profoundly, fundamentally altered. Captain Vance, the unified stellar Conquered owes your species a debt of gratitude that cannot be easily quantified. Your actions have demonstrated not merely technological superiority, but a moral clarity that we failed to maintain. You treated an existential weapon as a malfunctioning component and fixed it. It was merely necessary maintenance, Hierarch, Vance repeated, maintaining the dispassionate professionalism that defined his species' approach to the cosmos. The system is optimized. We are now tasked with ensuring the stability of the long-term solution. The Ethel will require periodic diagnostics. We will incorporate this into our standard deep space surveillance rotation. Vareth, humbled and deeply challenged, found himself struggling to adjust his fundamental worldview. The Krell ethos of kinetic dominance was suddenly obsolete in the face of this systemic control. Captain, the Conquered must now understand your origins, your knowledge of progenitor systems, your predictive models, your ability to integrate ancient knowledge. It surpasses anything in our combined archives. Why did you not share this information sooner? Vance sighed slightly, a subtle human gesture that carried vast philosophical weight. Elder, when we first attempted communication, your protocols were exclusively focused on establishing threat assessment and political hierarchy. When a system is unstable, you do not burden it with irrelevant data. We waited until the problem manifested and presented the solution. Now that the primary crisis is averted, we can address the deeper systemic issues. The shift in perspective was complete. The Terrans saw the Conquered not as peers, but as an unstable system they were now gently advising. Lyra, seeing the opportunity for genuine cultural integration, leaned in. What deeper systemic issues, Captain? Vance gestured subtly behind him, and the display W. Within the *TNS vigilance shifted, showing data that made the Krell sensors flicker in confusion. The Ethel *S internal systems, now stable and accessible, revealed something far more significant than the metaparasite protocols. Its existence is tied to a much larger cosmological construct. The Blood Moon Hunt was merely a local, automated security update. The original primary purpose of the Ethel *, and indeed the entire Forbidden Cluster, is the ongoing monitoring of a single external data stream. The holographic projection in the Skepterium shifted again, replacing the dark image of the *Ethel with a geometric representation of the galaxy. centered not on the Conquered's core worlds, but on the galactic rim beyond the current established boundaries of the known universe. A singular, incredibly faint signal originating from outside the local group was highlighted. Upon stabilization, Vance continued, his voice dropping slightly, conveying a new level of seriousness, the Ethel discharged its entire historical data buffer. This buffer contained not just records of the meta-parasite, but the accumulated observation data spanning hundreds of thousands of years. It confirms that the asterisk Ethel and its peer constructs were deployed by the progenitors to maintain local stability, yes, but primarily to act as relay stations. Relay stations for what? Vareth asked, his fear returning, colder and sharper than before. The terror of the forbidden ship was nothing compared to the terror of the unknown cosmos. For a persistent, ancient signal, Vance elaborated. A signal that has been received and stored by the asterisk Ethel for its entire operational lifespan. A signal that originates from beyond the Andromeda supercluster. We have already initiated translation and cross-referencing. The signal is not data. It is a cosmological observation, a vast, repeating loop designed to catalog environmental changes on a universal scale. Xylos integrated the frequency data transmitted by Vance into the Vorlag arrays. The resulting projection was immediate and overwhelming. The signal was real, powerful, and astronomically ancient. Captain Vance, the signal's strength implies a structure of unimaginable scale at the point of origin. This is not a communication beacon. It is a cosmic-scale measuring device. Exactly, Vance confirmed. And the latest cyclical reading, the one the Ethel just processed before its update, contains a significant, profound shift in the data. The reading shows a massive, unexpected change in the universal constant variables within our local galactic group, a change that only registered within the last 500 local years. The implications were dizzying. The entire framework of universal physics that the Conquered relied upon was shifting, and only an ancient, forbidden relay structure, awakened by a cosmological alignment, had registered the change. A change that coincided with the short, turbulent lifespan of the Terran species. Lyra focused on the philosophical weight of this ultimate reveal. A change in universal constants. This could mean the very stability of spacetime is compromised. What does this change signify, Captain? What does the Ethel *S final discharge tell us about the future? Vance paused again, and this time the look on his face was not one of professional calm, but one of deep, shared existential realization. The translated data is complex hierarchy. But the summary is chillingly simple. The Ethel *S cumulative observation report concludes that the change in constants is not a natural fluctuation. It is an effect. It is the signature of a vast, deliberate, extragalactic engineering project, a project that is only now beginning to manifest its influence in our local group. The Conquered delegates stared in horrified silence. The meta-parasite, the terrifying *Ethel itself, the political tension, all were rendered utterly insignificant by the realization that their entire civilization was merely the local variable in a truly cosmic-scale event. An engineering project? Vareth demanded, needing kinetic description to anchor the terrifying concept. What kind of power could enact change on a universal constant level? We do not know the who, Vance admitted, but we know the what. The data shows that whatever is approaching, whatever is creating this deliberate shift in reality, is attempting to fundamentally restructure the universe to be inhospitable to all baryonic, carbon-based life forms. It is not an attack. It is a systematic, universal terraforming initiative aimed at creating a reality suitable for a life form fundamentally different from ours. The concept was almost too vast to process. They were not fighting a war, they were in the path of cosmological landscaping. Vance concluded, his voice resonating with a renewed sense of purpose that transcended mere human survival. The forbidden ship awakened to conduct its blood moon hunt, ASM. All necessary defense against a localized parasite. But the true twist, the ultimate purpose of this convergence is that the Ethel waited for the most volatile, highest energy, most adaptable species in the sector to arrive, us the Terrans, to inherit this warning. It did not awaken to kill us, it awakened to alert us. The Ethel recognized your capacity, Lyra realized, her voice hushed with awe. It deemed the Terrans fit to receive the legacy, the warning of a threat that spans creation itself. It saw our speed, our chaos, our relentless pursuit of solutions, and realized we were the only variable fast enough to react to a problem operating on a cosmic timescale, Vance confirmed. Now, the political and military tensions of the Conquered are meaningless. The conflict is no longer internal. It is existential, exterior, and currently beyond the edge of our known reality. The conquered must unify not against us, but with us. We Terrans have spent our history cleaning up messes. We are now faced with the greatest project of environmental remediation ever conceived, ensuring the universe remains hospitable to life as we know it. The final image on the Skepterium's projection was the unified signature of the TNS Vigilance and the massive, silently repurposed Ethel Asterisk, two vessels, one ancient and one young, now operating in tandem, observing the faint, terrifying signal from the void. The tension of political fear had transformed into the deep, uniting dread of the truly unknown, forging an alliance not of diplomatic convenience, but of absolute, shared necessity, orchestrated by the forgotten mechanisms of a dead civilization, and inherited by the newest, most adaptable life form in the galaxy. The blood moon hunt was over. The true defense of reality had just begun.